Mark Twain once said, "God created war so that Americans would learn geography." Prophetic words. Americans did learn some geography through wars in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Libya. The question is, do they want a lesson on Ukraine? I'm not talking about military assistance or deploying soldiers to Eastern Europe. That's deterrence. I'm talking about fighting a war. Will US soldiers get down in the trenches? Will America fight Russia? It's a complicated question. Washington has just wrapped up a failed military campaign in Afghanistan. Does Joe Biden have the appetite to start another one? And if he does, will his allies back him? Here's what the president said last month, and I'm quoting. The idea that the US will unilaterally use force to confront Russia invading Ukraine is not on the cards right now. We have a moral obligation and a legal obligation to our NATO allies under Article 5. That obligation does not extend to Ukraine. Well, technically he's right. Ukraine is not a NATO member yet, so America is not legally bound to fight Russia. They can try deterrence. They can train and arm Ukraine, but they don't really have to wage a war themselves. Having said that, we are talking about a superpower, and superpowers do not run away from a fight. If they do, they won't hear the end of it. Case in point, the withdrawal from Afghanistan. So this is not just a military question for America, it's a question of prestige. After a string of foreign disasters, Joe Biden needs a win. And to do that, he needs his allies together. He needs the NATO to back him. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Last week, Britain dispatched military aid to Ukraine, some anti-armor defensive weapons. I'll show you a map that shows the flight path of that delivery. They flew over Denmark and Poland into Ukraine. Why? To avoid German airspace. You can see the detour clearly. And this is not an isolated incident. Last month, Germany refused to send weapons to Ukraine. They also blocked the export of German-made NATO weapons. Clearly, Berlin is not 100% committed. And there are two reasons for that. Number one, Germany's dependence on Russian energy. And number two, their post-World War position against militarization. France has a different objection. President Emmanuel Macron sees this crisis as an opportunity, a chance to build his European army. This is what he told the European Parliament last week, and I'm quoting again. "It's good that Europeans and the United States coordinate, but it's necessary that Europeans conduct their own dialogue. We must put together a joint proposal, a joint vision, a new security and stability order for Europe." This is what Emmanuel Macron said. America does not feature in this new order. The folks in Russia were quick to notice that. Here's what the Moscow Times said about Macron's statements. France calls for EU-Russia security pact in break with US. So Europe's big two are not convinced, France and Germany. And without their support, Joe Biden's position is much weaker. A, it would be a political disaster, probably strain their transatlantic ties forever. And B, because he needs European logistics. You have to remember the geography. The US is almost 6,000 miles away from Ukraine. Their troops need European bases and support. So fighting alone is not an option, not even for superpower America. Unless NATO is united, Biden will not wage a war. And don't forget the elephant in the room, nuclear weapons. Russia has around 6,400 nuclear warheads lying around. A direct confrontation between the world's biggest nuclear powers is apocalypse light. Neither Putin nor Biden wants that. So America is still betting on sanctions. Nothing new for Vladimir Putin. His country has been sanctioned multiple times by the West. Each time he finds a new market, like Venezuela, Iran, and now China. So sanctions alone will not discourage Vladimir Putin, and this stalemate actually works in Russia's favor. Think about it. America does not want war. Moscow does not care about Western sanctions. So what's stopping Putin from marching into Kiev? Two things. Number one, mass casualties. Ukraine may not be able to defeat Russia, but it can give them a bloody nose. So invasion will come at a steep cost. And reason number two, invading is one thing, controlling is another. Let's assume Putin marches into Kiev. Let's assume that he installs a puppet regime. What happens next? He's controlling a country that despises Russian control. So rest assured, there will be an insurgency. And who will support that insurgency? The West. We've seen it happen before. Soviet-backed insurgents dismantled America and Vietnam. In response, American-backed Mujahideen dismantled the Soviets in Afghanistan. This chain of proxy wars is not new, and Putin knows all of this. So essentially, we are looking at a lose-lose situation. War, invasion, all of it ends with deaths and losses. The public may cheer the saber rattling, but they won't cheer sending their children to the trenches. And I know what you're thinking. How long can this standoff continue? Surely something has to give. Well, logically, yes. Russia and America may reach some sort of compromise, but it's not a guarantee. We often forget that we had 40+ years of Cold War. The same standoffs, same proxy wars, same failed talks. So the threat of war may keep rising. But along with it, the cost of war also rises. And that is the deterrent on both sides. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.